Hello, I'm Robert Simmons. I'm the author of The Book of Stones, The Stones of the New Consciousness, The Alchemy of Stones, and the new upcoming book, The Book of Moldavite. And I'm making this video today to invite you to participate in my newest workshop, my intensive workshop called Exploring the Spiritual Path of Stones, Transcendence, Transformation, and Ascension. This intensive is a 4-day retreat from December 1st to the 4th at the Shunyata Retreat Center in Takaka, South Island, New Zealand. I'll give you the details again later in the video, but that's what and where and what the title is. And if you know me or you know my books, you know that working with stones and crystals and their energies for spiritual awakening and transformation has been the passion of my life and my career. And that's still going strong 36 years after I started. I'm very excited to be offering this intensive 4-day workshop in New Zealand. Now, the title, as I said, is Transcendence, Transformation, and Ascension. Exploring the spiritual path of stones. Now, those words, transcendence, transformation, and ascension, are more than just words. They refer to different aspects of the process of spiritual awakening and unfoldment that I feel stones can help us accomplish. And in the workshop, we'll be doing a lot of work in that area. So let's take them one at a time. Transcendence takes place when something occurs that causes our understanding to take a quantum leap into a new consciousness, a new worldview. And in the workshop, we'll aim for that through meditative experiences with some of the highest vibration stones that I've found in my lengthy career. I'll talk about a few of them in a bit as well. My own transcendence, my first one, occurred it is 36 years ago now, and I was sitting with a stone called Moldavite. This is a piece of it right here. And Moldavite is one of the central stones in my work with stones because it's the one that woke me up, and woke me up not only in my own awareness, but also to the ability to feel the energies of other stones. So just in a nutshell, to illustrate what I mean by transcendence, I'll say a little bit about my story. This is 1986. I was trained in science in college, not in anything spiritual. And I was skeptical that what people said about being able to feel energy from stones was a real thing. And the idea that stones had spiritual qualities also didn't really make sense to me. But I had met my wife, Kathy Helen Warner, and she prevailed upon me to sit every day and meditate with the stone in the morning before we went to work. So I did that for some time, about 6 months, and I never felt anything. I was holding a piece of Moldavite, sometimes having my hands in a couple of buckets of Moldavite, thinking more is better. And trying very hard to have an experience. And on this one particular day, holding just one stone, I kind of gave up on my trying. And I said to myself, well, if nothing's going to happen, I might as well imagine something is going to happen and that something is happening. So I envisioned that I was leaving my body and floating up above my body and going up into the cosmos. And I mean, I really didn't expect to go to the cosmos. I was just wanting to go up to the ceiling and look down at myself, or at least envision that I was doing that. And what happened is that I was able to do that. I found myself looking down at my body from above as I listened to my meditation music. And then I thought, well, this is interesting. Maybe I'll try to go up higher. So I went on up through the ceiling and up above the roof of the house. And again, I believed I was imagining all this, looking down at the house, and then kept going higher and could see the neighborhood, and then found myself going faster and faster and out into space. Now, through all this, I was aware that my body was in the room and I could hear the music playing, the meditation music. But nonetheless, I could also see this inner vision of traveling into the cosmos. And I reached a place where I was just surrounded by stars. I couldn't even see the earth anymore in my vision. At that point, I noticed a big golden star in the distance, and I wanted to go to that. So I willed myself to go there, and I found myself able to go in that direction. And after some time, not very long, I found myself close to this golden star, which loomed like a giant sun. And as I was looking at that giant sun, I noticed that there were millions of little replicas of it, maybe only this big, that were going in a big processional orbit around the big golden sun. And every one of them had a little thin thread of golden light that attached it to the sun. And there was this feeling of a holy, joyful, stately spectacle of a procession going around and around this golden sun. And I was moved by that, even as I was both in it and witnessing it. And I found myself so enraptured, I thought, I wonder what I look like here. And I kind of put my attention down to where I imagined my heart would have been. And right there was one of those little golden orbs like I saw all around me. At that moment in this meditation, a voice said, "The light you seek without is identical to the light within." And then in that moment, back in the room, still had my eyes closed, but my hand holding the Moldavite felt a buzz, and then energy came up my arm and into my heart, and my heart seemed to open like a flower opening, like a big white chrysanthemum opening, and light was what the petals were made out of. And the energetic feeling or the emotional feeling of that was joy, incredible joy. And then as that unfolded, more light started pouring up and down the inner and the upside and the downside from my heart. And all the other chakras opened like more flowers. So it was an ecstatic experience, and it was so overwhelming. There was so much light in my body at that point that I was back in my body, and I left the scene at which I had been in front of the golden sun, and I was back in the room just filled with light and ecstasy. It was so powerful that Kathy, my wife upstairs getting ready for work, could feel something happening with me down in the room, and she came downstairs to look. And when she looked at me across the room, she said, "Robert, you're full of light." I said, "I know." So that was a huge opening, a huge spiritual experience that was completely unexpected. And it happened in a way that made a quantum leap happen in my consciousness and my worldview, something I never expected to happen. I sat there thinking I was going to fantasize an out-of-body experience, which is one of the things that we learn when we work with stones and in all sorts of meditative areas. And that is, imagination is the doorway to spiritual experience. When we do the workshop at Shunyata in December, we'll do a number of meditative practices, and among those practices, pretty much most of the times, we'll begin with some sort of visualization or instruction that makes use of our imagination. And what we find is that just like in the experience I related just now, there comes a point in the experience where imagination gives way to the experience unfolding on its own. And we seek to get to that threshold, and we work with what I call the stone beings, the energetic presence of the stones, to help us boost our own vibrations so that it's easier for us to reach that spiritual threshold where big changes and small changes can occur. In my own experience with Moldavite, not only did I have an ecstatic experience of light in my body, but when I calmed down enough to go to work, Kathy and I went to our shop where we sold crystals, even though I had never felt one. And suddenly that day, I was able to feel every stone in the shop. I spent the whole day on the floor, picking up one after another and discerning and enjoying all their different vibrational energies. So that was a transcendent experience for me. It changed my worldview all at once, and it expanded my consciousness, and it activated a new capacity of perception, the ability to perceive stone energies. So that, in a sense, is my little illustration of number one of the three principles we're working on in this upcoming intensive class, transcendence. That's how we transcend. It's an example of transcending. And when we do the event together, there'll be multiple situations in which we draw upon the stone energies and we call upon the stone beings to aid us in reaching the threshold where we go past the limitations of what we knew into an unknown and expanded awareness. So the next word is transformation. Transformation is what happens to our whole way of living, inside and out, as a result of entering into that new transcendent awareness. And again, using myself as the example here, after that transcendent experience with the Moldavite and the meditation that I've just described, my way of life changed completely, because suddenly I was partnering with my wife in a crystal shop, but instead of standing outside of it and observing other people and their observations or what they said they were experiencing or how they felt with the stones, and usually with a kind of a skeptical attitude, I was in it, and I was feeling it every day. And then when people came to ask me things, I had something to say. And if people would bring in their own stone and say, "Can you hold this, Robert, and tell me what you get from it?" I'd have something to share with them about that, because the energy and the feeling and even the unfolding from an invisible intelligence of some kind of what the feelings actually meant in terms of the properties of the stone started coming to me. So that changed my career right on the spot in the shop, and it also was the beginning of me writing about the energies of stones. Now that I could access them, and I realized there was something very real going on, I wanted to write about it and express this, this kind of new world that had opened up to me. So in our 4-day intensive, if and when we reach some of these transcendent areas or some of these experiences that shift us, then we'll notice how this transforms and shifts our attitude towards the lives we've been living, not necessarily wanting to change them. A lot of you who would want to come to this are already here where I am about it. But there'll be many experiences that are new to you, because I'll be bringing a lot of stones that most of you haven't worked with before and that are very high energy stones. So now let's talk about the third word, ascension. Ascension is the next stage in which our new center of selfhood, the center of selfhood that opened up with the moment of transcendence, and that is being built through the transformation of life that we engage in. That new center of selfhood rises, deepens, and unites with its divine spark. And I got a taste of that in that original experience that I began with Because when the voice said, the light you seek without is identical to the light within, it was telling me that that great golden sun, which seemed divine, was the same light that I had in my own heart. So taking that in, not only as an idea or as a thought, but as a feeling, as a felt experience of myself is, or yourself, is what I'm pointing to when I use the word ascension. Because when that occurs, it reminds me of something the poet Kabir said. He said, all know that the drop unites with the ocean, but few know that the ocean unites with the drop. And what I take from that is the little golden sun in my heart was a spark of the same great golden divine sun that all these little suns were orbiting, which I viewed as souls. But not only that, but the presence of the whole of the divine, large, vast, glorious golden sun was holographically right here and is in each of us. Whether you use the image of a sun or some other image, that divine spark is in each person. And when we know it by feeling it, by recognizing it, and realizing that's our identity, that's our genuine identity, that's what I mean when I say that the process of ascension, vibrational ascension, and ascension in the sense of a great expansion of knowing our true nature is happening. So these are the big goals of my work with stones and my spiritual work in general. And these are the things I'm planning to bring to the intensive this December. And, I'll say a bit more about it now. I can say this. Although transcendence can sometimes happen in a single experience, as it did for me in regard to stone energies, these stages don't necessarily happen all at once. And they certainly don't happen just once and you're done. I wish that were true sometimes, but I realize, no, it's really better the way things unfold and the way that they grow and expand organically in us as we repeat and practice the things we glimpse the first time we have one of these experiences. So in regard to transformation and ascension, I believe one definitely needs to practice a lot in order to integrate a new way of being into our lives. And this is where the stones can help us a great deal. Although our attention and our energies can go up and down a lot for some time, and they'll be difficult for some time to keep ourselves focused, crystals and stones are different from the way we are. They don't vary. You can count on them to express their vibrational pattern, their energies and spiritual qualities all the time. So what that means is, anytime I pick up a stone, this stone's a piece of Rose Sophia, I know that Rose Sophia is a stone of the heart. And I know that Rose Sophia has a kind of loving energy that is also curved in a sense within my subtle body in a kind of a delicious, unfolding, undulating way. And I can count on that anytime I pick up a Rose Sophia and hold it to my heart. I know that I'll be able to connect with those qualities. So it's a great help to us as we're learning to focus our attention on the levels of awareness and the kinds of consciousness that we're trying to develop, that the stones can provide a rock solid way of connecting with those things. So I'm sure that everybody practically, if not everybody, who's hearing me say these words already knows this about them. But I still think it bears repeating because, as you can see, if we're going to transform our lives, we need practice. We need practice in a new way of being. And the stones are incredibly helpful in that way because they connect us with these expanded, higher vibrational kinds of awareness that are the ones that are the most rewarding and the ones that are aspects of our true nature. So we'll be doing that in the workshop. I'm working on creating the practices for the workshop right now, and I'll talk to you in a moment about the several different ones that I'm planning on presenting. But the idea is there are different qualities of consciousness that make up our wholeness and are reflected in our subtle bodies. In the intensive, we'll work with the stone combinations that facilitate the experience of each of these different qualities. So now, what are the qualities I'm talking about? What are the exercises we're going to do? I'm just going to say a word about each of these because I'm aware that we don't want to go on for hours here, although it would be easy for me to do. So here's just the list and the stones we're going to be using for these purposes in the 4-day event this December. The first practice is called awakening our central channel. We have a physical body and we have a subtle body that's a kind of envelope, you might say, that holds our physical body and permeates it. It's composed of just what the name says, subtle energy. It's not as solid as our material body, and it's much more malleable and changeable, and it's basically vibrational and energetic in nature, and it has a closer connection to the ultimate spark of the divine nature of the world and ourselves than we usually notice in our physical bodies, even though all of it is connected. So, in the subtle body, there is a central channel. The chakra columns go along that central channel. The first exercise we'll do at the intensive is called awakening our central channel, and we'll use two kinds of stones, Tibetan tektites, which are cousins of moldavites, and anandalites, which are in the quartz family. And both of these are very powerful at stimulating that up and down corridor of energy that corresponds to the chakras and parallels the spine. That's how it is in our subtle body. So to wake ourselves up and get started and have ourselves be more sensitive to the energies of all the stones we'll be working with, we'll start with awakening that central channel. Next, we'll do a process that I call deepening into stillness. And in that process, we'll work with a stone called Master Shamanite and another one called Black Azestulite, and one of the more familiar ones that I'm sure most of you know called Hematite. And these stones are all deeply grounding. They help us connect with the earth and with the stillness that is omnipresent in the earth, in us, in all things, including space. But this stillness requires that a lot of the different varying vibrations in our subtle body quiet down so that we can notice it. Stillness is the base from which everything else arises. So these stones, when we meditate with them, I've learned, will help us deepen very easily into the stillness. And there's something wonderfully nourishing and rewarding about that place. I won't spoil it by talking about it a lot, but when we get together in the event, not only will I talk about it more, but we'll have that experience. So the next exercise I call expanding into unlimited awareness. And just as the prior exercise was quieting, this is still remaining in stillness, but expanding awareness to infinity. It's, that's how far it goes. There's no end, there's no boundary. And for that kind of expansion, we'll work with white azestulite, saralite azestulite, which is from New Zealand, amazes, which is another azestulite that has amethyst as one of its components, blue-green azestulite, and infinite. So these are probably mostly stones that are less well known than things like hematite and quartz and so forth. But they're some of the highest vibration stones that some of the highest vibration stones I've found in my career, and I work with them all the time, and I love bringing people into connection with them. This piece here is a white azestulite. It's one of the very first ones that I ever had, and it connects with an angelic group soul intelligence called Azez that serves what they term the nameless light of the great central sun, which to me is also very much connected with that golden sun that I told you about. And I'll just jump now to Saurolite azestulite because I have a piece of it here. This is another high vibration stone similar to white azestulite in terms of its chemical structure, but very, very sweet and expansive and gentle in its energy. So I'm not going to show you all of these stones, but some of them are here at my fingertips, so I picked those ones up as we go through. That expansion is the next stage in our vibrational process that we'll go through as we sort of take the steps up the ladder in this 4 days. The next level or the next process is the one I call love and healing. And this is a heart-centered process. And in that one, we'll work with healerite, morganite, pink amethyst, pink petalite, pink azestulite, and rosophia. That's a whole complex of very loving, very soft, very nurturing heart energy stones. So the purpose of that is to saturate our heart chakra in the energy of love so that emotional healing, which is in many ways the root level of almost all of our healing, can take place more readily. So I put love and healing together because the way we address healing is through the subtle body. The imbalances that we carry in our subtle bodies are often, I would say many times, the roots of what we would think of as physical illnesses. They're really just expressions of the imbalance we carry in the subtle body, imbalances. So these stones help bring those things into balance through the saturation of love. So that's the love and healing section of our 4 days, and we'll spend a good bit of time working with those kinds of processes, and there'll be more than one. The next level or the next aspect of consciousness we'll reach towards is called strength and power. And in that section of the workshop, we'll work with stones called healer's gold, guardianite, red fire azestulite, vitalite, and auralite 23. So now this is an interesting complex mixture of stones because strength and power derives from the beginning manifestation of our wholeness. It is the manifestation of our wholeness. That's where strength and power comes from. So there is this incorporation of the earlier dimensions of consciousness that you might liken to some of the classical 4 elements, for example. Earth is connected with stillness, and air is connected with expansion, and water is connected with love, and fire is connected with power. And this other quality of strength has to do with bringing those 4 elements together in harmonious unity in our own subtle body. And it gives us a kind of a feeling of uprightness and sturdiness and connection to all these other 4 layers of ourselves in an integrated and harmonized way. So those stones that I've just mentioned for this section all support and facilitate that. Healer's gold is a great balancer of the meridian system and a strengthener. Guardianite is protection from negative influences around us. Red fire is Eschelite, is vitality and life force energy. And Vitalite, again, is more life force, more exuberance. And Auralite 23 is another layer of spiritual protection as well as an influence toward healing. So that's the kind of stones we'll work with in the Strength and Power section. The section that I call the Fire of Transformation, this is where we really get into the fire element more intensely. And for that one, we'll be using Moldavite, which is a very intense and powerful, dynamic, fiery energy of transformation. Pink fire is Eschelite. Green fire is Eschelite. All these stones that disclose their nature by the fact that they have fire in their names. Himalaya gold is Eschelite, another very powerful one from the Himalayas. And a stone called Cinnases that's from New Zealand, actually, and is a mixture of cinnabar and Eschelite. Cinnabar being the gemstone or the mineral that the alchemists, through their interest in mercury, were most fascinated by. So we'll really be working in this section on energetic and meditative practices with the help of these stones that will push forward transformation, this revolution of energy and consciousness in us. So I'll say just that's enough about that one for the moment. We'll move to the next one, interdimensional travel. And for interdimensional travel, this is in a certain way, it's like going up and out into the higher aspects of consciousness throughout the universe. It's going up into the angelic realms. It's going up into the high vibrational realms of the spirit guides and of, devas and maybe even extraterrestrial entities of a benevolent nature. But it's all the different dimensions of this sort of mansion with a million doors that is the domain of higher consciousness. And for the facilitation of that journey, or those many journeys, we'll use Azazeophenakite, Danburite, Celestite, Natrolite, and Shungite. I only have one of those stones right here with me, but it is phenakite. And you can almost see just from the physical appearance of this crystal that it's got a kind of an interdimensional nature. It really opens up the third eye and the crown chakra very powerfully. And all the phenokites are the premier stones of the third eye activation. And it's through the third eye that we enter the higher dimensions as we do these journeys. So in our 4-day workshop, if you can believe we'll have time for all of this, we'll do this as well. We'll take some interdimensional journeys with the help of these stones. And then the next layer, the next level, the next layer of consciousness that we'll address is I call Ascension into Unity with Divine Intelligence. And this is in a more simple way. This is what is known as entering into a state of knowingness. When our consciousness has been expanded and our vibrational pattern has accelerated and our old habitual shell has been broken open so that we can access more of this, then the unity with divine intelligence is one of the things that we can experience. And, it sounds pretty grand, but it can be very intimate and a part of just you being you. I guess I'll describe it this way. I mentioned earlier that when I was doing my Moldavite meditation and I was imagining the beginning of it, and there was a moment at which the imagination took off on its own and it was no longer being directed by me. It was unfolding of itself. That's one event in which I was connected with what I call divine intelligence, because it was no longer trying to make it happen. It was happening of its own, and it knew where it wanted to take me, and it revealed to me what I needed to see. So in that consciousness, it reminds me of like some of the sayings of Jesus, like ask and you shall be answered, or knock and the door will open. The imagination that we begin our meditations with is the knocking, and the answering is this connection with divine intelligence, where suddenly we experience knowingness suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly, but the experience of knowing, not thinking, comes to us. And the stones that we use for that are Santa Rosa azestulite, New Zealand white azestulite that actually comes from the South Island, where we'll be doing this event, scolasite from India, and Sachaloka clear azestulite, which is a very, very high vibration stone that comes from South India. So now there's one other stage that I'll talk about today, and that is the one I call experiencing the infinite fullness of the self. And this is where all of these expansions and all of these transcendences and all of the vibrational ascension and everything that we went into when we open ourselves up is brought back down and is condensed, you might even say, or just integrated into our own being in the physical location of our body. And for me, and I think probably for anyone else, the natural place of that is the heart. So we have practices that will engage us in becoming aware of the whole array of consciousness that we've accessed, and drawing the threads of it back into ourselves, and weaving a kind of a tapestry in the heart that incorporates the threads of everything we've done together. Another way of saying it, in alchemy, they called it making the philosopher's stone, the forming of a stone in our own being. And of course, it's not a physical stone, but it's as solid as a stone, meaning it's immovable, it's unchangeable. Once we have gone through the whole process that I very, very briefly sketched here, and come back and integrate it into our hearts, when that really happens, then we are experiencing and living out of our true nature, which is divine nature. So that's what I call the infinite fullness of the self. Now, for that process, for that practice, we'll work with a very happy stone called golden brucite. It's the stone of absolute levity and joy, which is one of the qualities of the infinite fullness of the self. All these spiritual practices can seem very serious and awesome and, I don't know, impressive, I guess is the word I want. And yet, when we're really in our true nature, we are ourselves, and we express through our personalities still, and yet we have a lightness and a levity and a joy about us. And this stone is my favorite one for invoking that. I mean, I can't even keep myself from smiling just holding it and talking about it here. And along with that, with the golden brucite, we'll use revelation stone, hartonite, azamar, a stone of a much softer and sweeter variety of joy, and a crystal that is called Lemurian mist. So these are all just lovely, lovely stones, very comfortable to be with. They don't explode your consciousness into the cosmos. They do help integrate a comfortable knowing full, joyful, complete, whole selfhood, which is the fulfillment of the journey that we are taking together. So it's very ambitious for me to say that we're going to do all this. And I will say we will do all these things. We'll do all these practices. And it will give everyone a chance to experience each of these aspects of awareness, and also to experience how the stones can help us shift our vibrational expression in order to resonate with these different aspects of consciousness. So these are the main areas where we'll focus our attention. Although as time permits over this 4 days, we'll go deeper into some of them. And healing's one of those areas, as I mentioned. Another is to fully awaken and activate the chakra system, which will begin with the very first practice. And both of these are important in shaping and strengthening the subtle body. And that is, of course, that's part of what I mean by transformation. Is the subtle body in most people who haven't meditated and who haven't worked energetically is undeveloped. It's there, but it's not fully developed, and it's rather passive. And one of the things we discover on this path of stones and of exploring the spiritual path of stones is that we can be proactive in terms of, you might call it being subtle body bodybuilders. We can strengthen our subtle bodies through experience and practice, and with the help of the stone beings who very much want to see human beings awaken and to see the whole earth awaken. And the ultimate desire and goal of both the ancient alchemists and myself and the friends that I treasure on this path is that full awakening of awareness and consciousness and love and wholeness for all of us and for the earth itself. I think it's very, very possible, and I'm very grateful to have found my path among the stones. And I hope that some of you who hear this will be moved to come and join us in New Zealand on the South Island, December 1st through 4th at the Shunyata Retreat Center. If you want more information about this, there's several ways to get it. I'll put them in the links. I'll put links below in the under the video, but also you can get in touch with the Heaven and Earth company, which is my company, by emailing heavenandearth@earthlink.net. And you can just use the subject line December New Zealand Workshop. So that's Heaven and Earth, all spelled out, at earthlink.net. I wish many blessings to everybody who's watching this video, and I hope you had some interest in what I had to tell you and share with you about the stone beings and their energies and how I see the potentialities that we can experience. Thank you very, very much.